Will the sheriff please give us the order?
Will all those here assembled for the inaugural ceremony of Carolyn Biddy Martin as the 19th president of Amherst College please be in order?
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Good morning. I'm Greg Call, Amherst Dean of the Faculty, and it is my great pleasure and honor to welcome you to the inauguration of Amherst College's 19th president, Carolyn Biddy Martin. Biddy, we gather this morning to welcome you to Amherst and to invest in you not only the formal trappings of Amherst presidency, but also our faith in and commitment to you and to the work we will pursue together. Already in your first few weeks on campus, your warmth, your intellect, your humor, and your generosity are evident to us. We are excited to join you in caring for our college. Gathered with us this morning are Presidents Emeritus Pouncey and Marks, the college's Board of Trustees, members of the Amherst faculty, our students, more and more as they wake up this morning, colleagues from the staff and administration, and many alumni, family, and friends. We are especially pleased to welcome our academic colleagues from many colleges and universities who marched in with us, our local partners from the town of Amherst and the Amherst Pelham schools, and our colleagues from our sister institutions, Doshisha University in Kyoto, the Folger Shakespeare Library in Washington, and our own 5 colleges here in the Valley. Thank you all for joining us this morning. My speech will be shorter if some of these pages blow away. And it will be longer if the longer it takes me to shuffle them. And inauguration is a time for renewal, a time to recommit to the mission, the values, dare I say it, the requisites that define our college. It is a time for reflection, a time to look back and ahead, but also a time to aspire. It is a time to seek new goals, new agendas formed from the bedrock values we cherish and inspired by the ongoing challenges we face. This morning, Amherst College stands less than a decade from its bicentennial. In our 190 years, there have been many moments of reflection and inspiration. If I may, I'd like to recall two, which I found particularly apt for this morning. 99 years ago today, October 16th, 1912, Alexander Meiklejohn, Amherst's 8th president, was inaugurated. On the occasion of the college's centennial in 1921, Meiklejohn offered an essay titled, "What Does the College Hope to Be During the Next 100 Years?" I commend Meiklejohn's inspiring essay to you and note we have less than a decade to fully achieve his aims. Let me share two quotations from Meiklejohn. First, "A great college with great teachers. That is our dream for Amherst. A great college is great teachers. That is the principle by which our dreams come true." But what defines, we may ask, great teachers, great teaching, great learning in 2011? It is, after all, 90 years after Meiklejohn's words. For me, Meiklejohn's words bring back a much more recent Amherst conversation of perhaps 4 or 5 years ago. We sought as a community at that time, spurred by the needs of reaccreditation, to flesh out the college's simple but profound admonition, Taras Aradient, let them give light to the world. Passed by the faculty and the Board of Trustees, the college finally articulated its mission statement. Let me recall for us the last paragraph of that mission statement. Amherst College is committed to learning through close colloquy and to expanding the realm of knowledge through scholarly research and artistic creation at the highest level. Its graduates link learning with leadership in service to the college, to their communities, and to the world beyond. With that understanding of learning through close colloquy, let us return to Meiklejohn's centennial essay. He wrote, and remember, this is 90 years ago, "We have a right today to faith in our old college, faith in the country which the college serves, faith in the work the college has to do, faith in its willingness and power to do that work. And we must keep the faith and do the work with joy and exultation." Appropriate to this afternoon and hopefully to many days that follow. And so, Biddy, this morning we share our faith in this old college with you, and we commit to do the work required of us with joy and exultation, that we may together learn in close colloquy and expand the realm of knowledge. May each of us go forward holding in our hearts and in our actions the simple admonition, Taras Aradient. Godspeed.
We faculty of Amherst College warmly welcome you, President Martin, to this special community on this beautiful New England autumn day. Your warm presence on campus gives each of us a moment of reflection, each one of us being different, but at the same time, remarkably similar. Just like the foliage of the Holyoke Range that we can view from Memorial Hill, we make one entity in a unique way. Although each leaf has a very different, unique, and distinct color and shape, together, these leaves give a sense of very special oneness which a great painter could capture in one beautiful picture on one canvas. Like these leaves, with your guidance, we faculty truly look forward to working with you so that we can together paint a new picture, one that is harmonious and powerful, and one that you will be proud of. Welcome to Amherst, President Martin.
Oh, it's sort of. It has been our custom at Amherst to award a Master of Arts degree to faculty who have reached the rank of full professor and who are not themselves yet graduates of the college. The custom derives in part from a desire to pay tribute to their distinction as teachers and scholars. More important still, the custom shows Amherst's pride in them, and we hope in this way to bring them even more closely into the long life of Amherst College. Biddy, we, your faculty colleagues, are delighted that you have recently joined our ranks as a tenured member of the Departments of German and Women's and Gender Studies. Wako and I are privileged this morning on behalf of our colleagues on the faculty and the Board of Trustees to award this honorary degree to you. By virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees of Amherst College, I confer upon you the degree of Master of Arts honoris causa with all the rights and privileges pertaining thereto. Congratulations. Whoops.
Okay.
Because Amherst is one of the nation's premier liberal arts colleges, its president is a fellow traveler with liberal arts college deans at major research universities in the ongoing fight to realize the full promise of liberal arts education. I am thrilled to have Biddy Martin in our circle. Her years as Cornell's provost were characterized, above all, by principled actions. I repeatedly admired her willingness to take on difficult situations and her ability to manage them with courage, guided by integrity. Those qualities will surely be called upon now while the liberal arts are under greater than usual pressure. One of the many strengths of American higher education is its variety of institutions. A particular flavor distinctive to this country is the liberal arts program championed by leading colleges like Amherst. In fact, this educational model is a unique American product. For many decades, the United States has been the only country that requires students to have breadth in their studies. I can speak to this as a Canadian who experienced a highly specialized education, both in Canada and in Britain. The genius of American liberal arts education is proven because it survives and flourishes. However, since its inception, that model has regularly been under siege because America can become obsessed to an unfortunate degree with monetization. In 1912, the Swanee Review published The Renaissance of the Liberal Arts College by German literature scholar Thomas Lindsay Blaney, who was a founding faculty member at Rice and a frequent commentator on education, and who, I cannot resist adding, took his Boston Terrier named Biddy aboard ship to Europe in 1937. I have a picture to prove it, actually. In this article, he observes, "So eager has the race after all that spells quick success, both from the administrative as well as from the undergraduate standpoint, that the objective of many of even our best colleges baffles definition. Blaney later cites a marker in the long-standing debate about the liberal arts that is centered here on this campus. He mentions the recommendation of the class of 1885 to the trustees of Amherst College to, quote, take a distinctive public position as a representative of that individual training and general culture which was once the purpose of all American colleges. He continues, it is the belief of the class of 1885 that the colleges of the country have permitted themselves to be led astray from their true function, and that some reaction is inevitable, and that no college can better lead such a movement than Amherst. The liberal arts education remains a distinctive contribution to American civilization. What continues to be of question to some is its value. There is a tension around it in this country that won't go away and that is accentuated in difficult times, economic hard times like these, when jobs are uneasy and limited. With acute job problems, it becomes even harder to convey the enormous benefits that a liberal arts education provides to individual students and society as a whole. At Cornell, Biddy is described as passionate, exuberant, tough, even fearless. Undoubtedly, she is feisty and dedicated to the liberal arts. We need her intellectual strength and force of character because she will be able to hold up our end of the argument in a contentious environment. Biddy will be a champion in this particular area. As we are constantly called on to defend the liberal arts, people in my role are happy to have Biddy as a leader in the good fight.
Good morning. I'm Yasuhiro Kuroki of Doshisha University, where I teach in the Department of Social Welfare. It is a great honor to be here this morning. On behalf of President Eiji Hatta and Board of Trustees of the Doshisha, I would like first to convey my congratulations to Biddy Martin as the 19th president of Amherst College. Second, I'd like to remind all assembled here this morning the relationship between Amherst College and Doshisha University extends back 136 years. This relationship is unique in higher education on both sides of the Pacific. No other two schools have such a close collaboration. We share students, we share faculty, and we share values. All because Joseph Hardy Nishima risked his life for education and returned to Kyoto, where he founded a school modeled on Amherst. We at Doshisha look forward to welcoming President Martin in Kyoto in near future. Thank you very much.
Biddy Martin, on behalf of the 5 colleges, one of the country's oldest and most distinguished higher education consortia, welcome to the neighborhood. You come to lead an institution of 1,800 students and 200 faculty members. You actually have a constituency of 35,000 students and 2,500 faculty. Did we mention that? In each of whom is vested the strength of our 5-way partnership. Your portfolio as director of the consortium extends to encompass a research university with an honors college, 2 7-sister women's colleges, and an experimenting college created by the prior 4. You might be shocked to learn that we, don't always find ourselves in perfect agreement, but that's when our work together is most engaging. Manifest within the 5 colleges is the power of partnering undergraduate with graduate, public with private, and research university with liberal arts college in service of new models for higher education. Admittedly, the day-to-day can be less lofty. Our meetings can sound like public works planning. We talk about bus routes, fiber optic cable, fleet management, and the bunker, or rather the book depository, more than you might imagine. But we're equally sponsors of interdisciplinary collaborations in emerging fields such as biomathematics and sustainability studies, and the locus of one of the country's richest and most renowned intellectual communities. For me, it's a particular pleasure to extend this greeting to Amherst's first woman president, from an institution where educating women for leadership was our founder's animating dream. In fact, when Sophia Smith unexpectedly inherited her fortune, she was pressed very hard to give it to Amherst, but chose a different path. I know she is smiling today. Sophia's decision, and countless along the way by my predecessors and yours, have resulted in a consortium unparalleled in the diversity of its members and its campus communities. There's much that we can achieve together that we could never accomplish alone. On behalf of my fellow directors, we welcome you to our table as a neighbor, as an ally when the going gets tough, and most of all, as a friend and a partner.
When Noah Webster, whose birthday it happens to be today, spoke at the laying of the cornerstone here in 1820, he praised the location in part by virtue of its townsfolk, people whose moral, religious, and literary habit disposed them to cherish the cultivation of the mind. The town seal, invented by an Amherst professor only in 1959, reflects that self-image. None of the pioneering institutions of higher learning here would have come into being were it not for the peculiar passion for learning evinced by the residents of this rural community. It was the people of Amherst who created Amherst Academy in 1814 to provide a modern secondary education for women as well as men. Citizens associated with the academy in turn created Amherst College to provide future Christian clergy with a new liberal arts education, regardless of financial need. The ordinary citizens of Amherst were no less enthusiastic, donating, we are told, stone and labor and lumber, working day and night, like the Jews in building their temple. When the Morrill Act of 1862 created land-grant colleges dedicated to advanced democratic education and scientific agriculture, residents fought to win a charter for Massachusetts Agricultural College here. To be sure, Amherst College, with its, shall we say, typically complex mixture of altruism and acquisitiveness, unsuccessfully sought to control the new institution. But its intellectual elite both shaped and led it. A century later, the four local colleges, led by visionary Amherst administrators and alumni, created Hampshire College, which offered an experimental, interdisciplinary education suited to a coming age of information and globalization. Although Amherst College was conceived of as a bastion of Calvinist orthodoxy, it from the start grew and adapted. It never imposed a religious test on students or faculty. It graduated its first African-American student in 1826. It finally admitted women in 1975. To cite Webster again, too long have men been engaged in the barbarous works of multiplying the miseries of human life. Too long have their exertions been devoted to war and plunder, to the destruction of lives and property, to the ravage of cities, to the unnatural, the monstrous employment of enslaving and degrading their own species. Blessed be our lot. We live to see a new era in the history of man. With the arrival of President Martin, we too see a new era in the history of men and women. Amherst College has not always been kind to its presidents. When in the 1920s Alexander Meiklejohn tried to update that vision, he was forced out for being too radical. Today, his vision of progressive, interdisciplinary education and community-engaged learning seems, well, visionary. He left, by the way, for the University of Wisconsin. In a happy irony, we install today as president a graduate of that great institution. On behalf of our government and residents, welcome, Biddy Martin. May we always embrace, rather than fear, new ideas and approaches. May your efforts be crowned with success as the partnership between the town and College of Amherst approaches its third century.
I'm honored to be here this morning on behalf of the school committees and the faculty and staff of the Amherst Pelham and the Amherst Pelham Regional Schools to extend best wishes to President Biddy Martin. President Martin, I hope that you receive a warm welcome to our community, one which makes you feel at home and as well as inspired professionally. Amherst and the surrounding communities hold vast opportunities for intellectual growth, cultural inspiration, and real innovation, all set in a landscape of incredible natural beauty. These opportunities exist in large part because of Amherst College and the 4 other nationally recognized institutions of higher learning in our area. They define Amherst as a community that values continuous learning, creative exploration, and vigorous discussion and debate. And our children and our students in grades K through 16 reap significant benefit from that. While you can find pockets of peace and quiet, Amherst is never a dull place to be. The Amherst Public Schools and Amherst College hold a collective commitment to educate young people well so that they will leave us ready to engage their community and become fulfilled adults. I'm thankful that our partnership has grown and strengthened over the years. We've defined our interests, we've leveraged our resources, and strengthened the development of our faculty. And the students of the Amherst Regional Schools, as well as Amherst College, have mutually benefited from this relationship. Working collaboratively, we've not only envisioned possibilities that will make a difference in the lives of children and young adults, we've made them happen, which is truly inspiring. I thank you, President Martin, for joining us in this critically important work. Congratulations and welcome to a wonderful community.
These are, I think I know. These woods belong to me. That line of mountains, all the sky I see. Thank you, Amherst, for 3 places you've given me. A place right here, a place for roots, a growing place, a greening place, a warmness when it's cold. A second place I'll go someday, a place awaiting me. A line of mountains I can see from here, and someday I will climb, and maybe from their heights I'll see another line. And then above me all the sky
President Martin, the trustees of Amherst, administrators, faculty, staff, and guests. I am Raman Borsellino, and I am honored to speak to you today on behalf of the student body of Amherst College. In our brief time here at Amherst, a number of us can say that we have witnessed history. The seniors will recall that night in November of our first year, when we all spontaneously came together on the freshman quad to celebrate the election of Barack Obama. And anyone here last year can recall the Sunday night when our homework or other activities were interrupted by the death of Osama bin Laden. And while these events affected us in one way or another, it is today's inauguration of the first female president of Amherst College where we can come together and say, we are proud to be Lord Jeffs. A lot can be said about the learning environment that Amherst boasts outside of the classroom, and I would like to provide you with a brief example of what I believe is what Amherst is all about. Right around the time that the search began for Amherst's 19th president, I signed on to Facebook one day to see a group that had been started by some students. It was titled, "We Want a Woman as the Next President of Amherst College." And what I saw on that Facebook page was numerous students using their free time, which I guarantee you is not in abundance here, to critically debate the question of a female president. While many had joined the group to show their support for the cause, there were those who had chosen to voice their opposing opinions by saying things like, "I disagree, we should be choosing a candidate strictly on their merits and not their gender." In honesty, it was one of the more heated Facebook debates that I have ever seen. But it was an Amherst debate. These students weren't arguing for personal reasons or for the sake of disagreement. They truly cared about what they were saying. And eventually, one of the more outspoken participants in the debate stated, "I'm really sorry, I have to go submit a paper and will return in an hour. Could we please continue this discussion later?" And this sort of discussion is what Amherst students are all about. And I'll tell you what came of it. A president who was in fact chosen on her merits. And as it turns out, a woman. And students could not be happier. And if last night's mob of students who lined the pathway for Biddy's walk to the campus center wasn't enough, I hold the proof of our appreciation in my hand. This past week, our student government passed a resolution for this occasion, and I would like to read it to you. The Association of Amherst Students, on behalf of the entire student body, commends President Martin on her distinguished record of scholarship and administration at Cornell University and the University of Wisconsin-Madison. We are confident that her efforts to create a more inclusive learning community and a more robust academic experience will continue to expand during her tenure here at Amherst. It is with deep appreciation for her past achievements and excitement for her future leadership that this body welcomes and expresses its sincere enthusiasm for Biddy Martin at her inauguration as the 19th and first female president of Amherst College. So, President Martin, I present you with this resolution, and on behalf of all of us, welcome. We are so happy to have you.
These keys are part of the history of Amherst College. I did a little research and realized that they may have open buildings that no longer exist on campus. Buildings like Walker Hall and the Old North College, both destroyed by fire, or perhaps even East College, which has not been in existence since 1883. It may also have opened the door to Stearns Church, of which the only remaining structure is the steeple still located on campus. President Martin, it is an honor to represent the staff in presenting you with the keys to the college.
That was good. I love the way you put it. Thank you. Thank you. Can I give you the
Yes.
President Martin, on behalf of the 21,000 alumni of Amherst College, it's a privilege to welcome you here. You are part of a great tradition of distinguished educators that have led this institution, and we are proud and grateful that you have joined our community. It is obvious to us already that you are held in exceptionally high regard at all of the institutions that have come before us: Madison, Cornell, William and Mary. For example, you got a standing ovation at Wisconsin before the press conference where your resignation was announced. And a standing ovation afterwards. When I originally expressed amazement at that, I got many reasons people have relished your leadership, and I'll echo some of the ones that we've already heard this morning from Deans Cull and LePage. Your powerful intellect, your renowned sense of humor, how humility and modesty are real hallmarks of your leadership. Thank you in advance for all of the examples you will be setting and already have set here at Amherst. So professors, alums, students, staff, trustees, the community, they're all really drawn to you, and I'm just so impressed at all of the ways that this is true. I spent the afternoon yesterday interviewing nearly a dozen Amherst students. As you already know, what a remarkable group of students we've got here. Really brainy, really thoughtful, really eager to help people, really good at asking hard questions. Among students, there's such an excitement that you're here, as you've already heard this morning for a moment. Students yesterday said to me things such as, "She's like a real person." They bragged that you hang out with them on the quad. They do things like go out of their way to run into you on dog walks. They planned last night random acts of kindness for you, as we've heard in droves. Let's face it, you're on day 56, and you already have the big potential to be beloved. It's a big deal here. Today, as we've heard, is a big day. Your ascension to the new role, it does carry special significance. Today is actually the 35th anniversary that women were admitted to Amherst, and you're the first woman to be its president. I may be biased, but I think both of those milestones are really, really worth celebrating. I'm thrilled Amherst can do this with so many of your Wisconsin and Cornell friends among us. And I think it's just a real statement how many of them are with us today. I find that really striking. So your job, of course, comes with many challenges. They are way too numerous to even begin to mention. My principal message on behalf of the alums is this: we are here to help. 70% of Amherst alumni engage in the life of the college annually, and thousands of alums raise their hands each year to help students. Asking for help is such an important skill. It's something I really learned to do here, and please reach out to us to help you in any ways that we can. To be sure, the alumni are by no means a monolithic community. We are spread out across the country and across the world. We have pursued a wide range of careers, community activities, pastimes, disciplines, and hobbies. Some have focused on education and academia, others on corporate positions, others on volunteer work, others on raising families. But it is this very diversity that argues most eloquently for a liberal arts education, the key component of which is a life well lived. For this, you are an example to us all. And toward that end, we have a direct stake in seeing that Amherst remains a place that will produce future generations of broad thinkers and global doers. That's Roman and all of the students here. We know that you respect the many prior achievements of Tony Marks in particular, and many other leaders before him, and that you want to build on them. We want to help you toward this end in any way possible. In closing, it is my honor to present you with the first Amherst College cane. It's a presidential cane here. Inspired by the long-standing tradition of giving a class cane to each graduate and to distinguished designated honorees, Amherst is inaugurating this new tradition with your presidency. And it occurs to me that this cane is really emblematic of the ways in which people here lean on each other, time and time again, right? Students receive unparalleled support from the faculty. Faculty receive support from the administrators and trustees. Students feel strongly about supporting the staff in a multitude of ways. And you have no doubt seen that the reverse is true in spades. Alumni support the college in record-setting numbers. Please consider this cane as a symbol from the alumni that you can lean on us. Relish these moments, and especially this first year, your first year with these profoundly talented students and faculty and the Amherst faculty. They truly make Amherst shine.
President Martin, trustees, faculty, students, and distinguished guests, I bring you greetings from Washington, D.C. My name is Michael Whitmore, and I'm the director of the Folger Shakespeare Library, which is the world's largest collection of historical materials connected to the life of William Shakespeare and the English Renaissance. The Folger was founded by Amherst alumnus Henry Clay Folger in 1932 and is permanently linked to Amherst College, which has acted as its parent corporation since the library's founding. Having worked with Biddy at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, I am truly delighted with her appointment. She brings a special passion for the humanities and the liberal arts that is both rare in the world and perfectly appropriate to Amherst. We at the Folger are delighted to be partnered with the college and delighted to greet Biddy Martin as its new president. Let me say a few words about this gift. Mr. Folger's fascination with Shakespeare began in 1879 when, as a senior here at the college, he heard a lecture by Ralph Waldo Emerson. Emerson made a lasting impression on Folger, who developed a lifelong interest in Shakespeare, and along with his wife, Emily Jordan Folger, went on to found the library in the nation's capital. Folger received this book, The Complete Works of Shakespeare, as a Christmas present during his freshman year. Its opening and final pages are filled with quotations of Emerson and other writers who wrote about Shakespeare, and they document the life of someone who was passionately engaged with his reading. We're delighted to give this book to Biddy and to Amherst as a gift commemorating her inauguration and as the first of what I hope will be many meaningful exchanges between our two institutions. This will go into the library. You want me to hold it for you?
I'm going to read you an old poem of mine in honor of our new president, Biddy Martin. It's called Altitudes, and it begins in some great cathedral church of Europe, but soon migrates to familiar ground. Altitudes. Look up into the dome. It is a great salon, a brilliant place, yet not too splendid for the race whom we imagine there. Wholly at home with the gold-rosetted white wainscot, the oval windows, and the faultless figures of the painted vault. Strolling, conversing in that precious light, they chat, no doubt, of love. The pleasant burden of their courtesy borne down at times to you and me, where, in this dark, we stand and gaze above. For all they cannot share, all that the world cannot in fact afford, their lofty premises are floored with the massed voices of continual prayer. How far it is from here to Emily Dickinson's father's house in America. Think of her climbing a spiral stair up to the little cupola with its clear small panes, its room for one. Like the dark house below, so full of eyes in mirrors and of shut-in flies, this chamber, furnished only with the sun, is she and she alone. A mood to which she rises, in which she sees bird choristers in all the trees, and a wild shining of the pure unknown on Amherst. This is caught in the dormers of a neighbor who, no doubt, will before long be coming out to pace about his garden, lost in thought. Thank you.
The founding of Amherst College almost 2 centuries ago represented a breaking of historical bonds and a belief in the value of education as an egalitarian means of shedding light on knowledge. Carolyn Arthur Martin, you've spoken powerfully of the role that the liberal arts have played in your life, at once breaking familial bonds and illusions, while drawing you forward into a remarkable life of intellectual and personal growth and leadership. Amherst was established during a period of substantial change, a time when Florida was ceded by Spain to the United States, when Venezuela gained independence, as did Colombia, Ecuador, the Dominican Republic, and Panama. By the end of its first decade, Amherst was the second largest college in the United States, larger than Harvard, and second in size only to Yale. Our founders had established a charity fund, an important source of financial aid and a means of broadening access to the college. During uncertain times, Amherst sought to shape its destiny. Almost 200 years later, the world again faces substantial change. By the end of the current century, the world's population is forecast to grow to 10 billion from today's 7 billion. The vast majority of this growth will come from Africa and from Asia. With half of Amherst's tenured and tenure-track faculty beyond the age of 50, this next decade is likely to see the renewal of a large proportion of this faculty. Increased volatility in financial markets will pressure our college's financial resources, pressing Amherst to make trade-offs of a magnitude we have not faced since the 1980s. Biddy Martin, your intelligence, your wisdom, and your experience will serve our community well. Your ability to listen carefully and your authentic respect for and enjoyment of students and faculty will earn you the trust and the support of our community. The decisions taken during your presidency will shape this college far into this century through the careers of the faculty that are hired during your tenure and the nature of the students, future alumni, that are attracted to this place. Amherst values are evident in your personal and professional experiences. To everything, there is a season and a time to every purpose. This season is yours, Biddy Martin. You stand here under the gaze of our great faculty, our staff, our students, and our trustees. We're honored by the presence of esteemed delegates from peer institutions. 3 of my predecessors, 2 of yours, are joined with us here on this beautiful autumn morning as we entrust to you these precious symbols of our history and our values. By virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees, I hereby place in your hands, Biddy Martin, the charter and the seal of Amherst College.
Good morning. I'm honored and moved by the greetings, by your presence, the presence of our trustees, faculty, staff, students, and by the way, students, after the dancing last night, it's good that I received a cane. I'm delighted to have my nephew, my closest friends, my colleagues from all over the country with me on this occasion. I want also to acknowledge the 3 former chairs of the Board of Amherst Trustees, Amos Hostetter, Spike Beitzel, and Chuck Longsworth. Thank you for honoring me with your presence. I consider myself so fortunate to be able to build on the foundation that was laid by these trustees, these board chairs, and the 2 former presidents who are with us today, the 17th and 18th presidents of Amherst College, Peter Pouncey and Tony Marks. Thank you. My move to Amherst College has felt like a homecoming. That may seem odd, even to me. I haven't been here very long, and my journey from Campbell County, Virginia, to Amherst, Massachusetts is an improbable one. It breaks a number of ancient rules in the community where I grew up. Stay below the Mason-Dixon line. Aspire only to what will keep you at home. and trust only your own kind. Part of me as a child must have longed for a place like Amherst without having had any way to imagine it or even any inkling that it existed. What I want to say to you again is I am so glad to be one of you and glad to be one of many kinds. Thank you. No, I fooled you into thinking I was done. I suppose my presidency here could be seen as improbable on Amherst's side as well. It was founded, as you know, by Orthodox Calvinists, and in its childhood and adolescence, it was meant to prepare talented, pious young men for the ministry, not just any men, but men without means. The college has changed significantly from its religious mission and has been serving secular ends for a very long time. But if we travel back down the corridor to Amherst's childhood, we see much that endures. Access to education, regardless of means, the highest of educational standards, and a desire to illuminate the world. I was drawn to Amherst because of these very values. Today, I want to focus on a quality that's not easy to summarize in a word, but I'm going to call it a sensibility. And I'm going to use a novel rather than historical or scientific means to trace it back to Amherst's origins. Marilynne Robinson's novel Gilead is written as if a letter from a failing elderly Calvinist minister to his young son about his life in the ministry. I'm going to read you a somewhat lengthy excerpt from that fictional letter from father to son. Here's the quote. "A great part of my work has been listening to people in that particular intense privacy of confession, or at least unburdening, and it has been very interesting to me. Not that I thought of these conversations as if they were a contest. I don't mean that. But as you might look at a game more abstractly, where is the strength? What is the strategy? As if you had no interest in it, except seeing how well the two sides bring each other along, how much they can require of each other, how the life that is the real subject of it all is manifest in it. When people come to speak to me, whatever they say, I am struck by a kind of incandescence in them, the I whose predicate could be love or fear or want, and whose object can be someone or nothing. It doesn't really matter, because the loveliness is just in that presence, shaped around I like a flame on a wick, emanating itself in grief and guilt and joy or whatever else, but quick and avid and resourceful. To see this aspect of life is a privilege of the ministry which is seldom mentioned." End of quote. To see this aspect of life is a privilege of education, which is too little valued, even in the world of higher education. But it is still the heart and soul of Amherst College. Amherst students are nothing if not quick and avid and resourceful, and to interact with them is to experience directly the incandescence to which our Calvinist minister alludes. I ask you to bear in mind our fictional minister's emphasis on how well the two sides bring one another along, how much they can require of each other, as I turn to the writings of one of Amherst's legendary teachers and scholars, Benjamin DeMott. In an essay entitled English and the Promise of Happiness, DeMott tells us that the English class, quote, is the place wherein the chief matters of concern are the particulars of humanness, individual human feeling, human response, and human time. As these can be animated with the help of writing and discovered by student writers seeking through words to name and compose and grasp their own experience. DeMott tells us that there are few such spaces in most colleges and universities, and I fear that he was right. At Amherst, these spaces of human time and human interaction are still central to what the college is. A research college that preserves what is oddly so easily lost in education, even in English classes. And it will take focus and determination to preserve those spaces, even here. At the heart of Amherst is conversation. Benjamin DeMott says the function of conversation, the searching for terms, the pretending to exactitude, criticizing and celebrating each other's offerings, is to resituate a deeply private enterprise on a public stage. How I wish our more public stages were models of this kind of conversation. I think it is our responsibility to help make it so by whatever means we can. DeMott says that a class brings our variousness into play, allows us to bring our variousness into play, explore our range, discover our delicacy with other people. To do those things takes time. It takes attention. It takes practice. It takes low student to teacher ratios. It is costly. It is life-giving. I know that from experience. DeMott illuminates its rewards by taking us into a class on Shakespeare's Lear. And he talks about the offerings of one young woman. He says that she tells us what's going on within Cordelia as the king, her father, bears down on her. Here is the offering of the young woman in the words of DeMott. She, Cordelia, says the student, is in rebellion, yes, but that's not her idea of herself. She won't flatter her father. But think how much harder she could be on him than she's being. Actually, she's not saying one half of what she could, not telling him what everybody can see, that he's vain and fatuous. Oh, she's rebelling, but she has herself under wraps as she's speaking. She is pressing down. In spite of everything, being stony and brusque, she knows she's being good. She feels forbearing. The student's offering comes to a close, and DeMott tells us that a sound of assent comes into the stillness. Benjamin DeMott values the offering of this young woman, and he spends his time in his office after class telling himself the following: I jot a word or two in the crowded margins of Lear, C, forbearing, with the young woman's initials, and look through the window at the octagon and down the hill. I realize not simply that this is a good student who will have more and more to give, but that it will be better not to think of teaching her. The point is to stay with her, being equal to what comes. Thinking about how he can facilitate the flourishing of one young woman, asking, as our Calvinist minister did, where is the strength? What is the strategy? How can we bring one another along? Lest you think that Benjamin DeMott is the only one, I visited Richard Wilbur's and David Sofield's poetry class on John Donne. And on the morning of the class, I slipped into the one seat left in the room. It was relatively small and unadorned, a classroom in Converse Hall. I could not have been more excited. I could not have taken more pleasure in hearing Richard Wilbur and David Sofield read John Donne aloud. I felt privileged by the students' offerings. I made one of my own, which I later regretted. Lest you think that these classes are only in the English department, I can also disabuse you of that. This kind of poetry extends throughout Amherst College. In a visit to the chemistry department, I was treated to a discussion of the difference between teaching 15 students in a lab and 30 students in a lab. The difference between bringing students along so that they're able to think and learn about how to do the problem and conceive of its importance rather than merely figuring out how to get to an answer. When meeting with alumni of Amherst College, I realize it's very much like being on campus, as you might expect. And I was told more than once that when alumni gather, they talk about specific classes and particular professors with a passion which alumni of other institutions typically reserve for reminiscences about great football seasons. And I witnessed on more than one occasion that this is true. A great college takes not only great teachers, though it does indicatively take that. It takes teachers who are genuine intellectuals, students who are quick and avid and resourceful, outstanding and dedicated staff, which Amherst has in spades, and alumni who give back with their ideas and their resources. A great college also takes a relationship to time that is different from the time of the news or the business cycles, but is nonetheless curious and informed about those cycles. The investment of time and the quality of our attention in relation to young people matters as much as the content of what we profess, and that is why Amherst matters. In 10 years, we'll be celebrating the 200th anniversary of Amherst College. On the occasion of its 100th anniversary, as you've already heard today, then President Alexander Meiklejohn gave an anniversary speech in which he decided to offer 3 prophecies about the future of the college. Actually, he hedged a bit and said the future of the college would depend on the future of the nation. And he had 3 predictions about the future of the nation. In 1921, he suggested this: the United States would develop a culture that was genuinely independent of Anglo-Saxon Britain, and that it would, as a result, distinguish itself from Britain's aristocratic approach to other peoples and races and creeds, creating a level playing field rather than domination over others. And then that faith would be restored to American culture. Amherst's next 100 years would follow those trends. As for faith, the nation remains deeply divided about its centrality and place. I'm not going to comment on it here. Amherst has not returned to its Calvinist origins, except in the ways we never left them. But it glows with the light of the most important article of faith in higher education, which is faith in youth and faith in our capacity to learn from the beginning to the end of our lives. As for the equal playing field across races and creeds and nations, the country has made progress since 1921, but has a long way to go. And today, economic disparities plague not only the United States, they threaten stability around the world. In his remarks on September 14th, 2001, 3 days after 9/11, Walter Lefebvre historian of American foreign policy, asked his audience at Cornell, quote, to remember from a study of a long history that these disparities will inevitably change. If we are fortunate, wise, and remember, we will help guide that change rather than having the changes imposed upon us. This insight means, he said, that we cannot be both ignorant of other peoples and remain free. We cannot be intolerant of the great cultures and races with which we share a shrinking planet and remain free. We cannot surrender centuries-old constitutional principles, especially in checks on each branch of the government, and remain free. What role does the college play in our determination to remain free? It must do what it does best, what Meiklejohn himself tirelessly promoted, not only at Amherst College, but at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And that is academic freedom, the free exchange of ideas. It must educate. It must discover. It must realize that the many peoples of the world are now more than ever our neighbors. And remember, in the words of Walt Lefebvre, that innocence and ignorance of others in this new world have no place. Thanks to the determination and leadership of the 3 board chairs in front of me and the 2 presidents who preceded me, Amherst's student body has come much closer to reflecting the realities of the racial, religious, and cultural differences that make up our world. Meiklejohn would have been pleased, but neither he nor we are satisfied with our demographic changes. What we want is to take responsibility and use the privilege of ensuring that the benefits of that diversity are realized, that the education we offer is infused with those benefits, and that any challenges that arise from them are addressed in a serious way. Amherst has certainly not ended up as an aristocratic culture. It believes passionately in checks and balances. Despite its relative wealth and its prestige, I have found that Amherst is a frugal place, administratively thin, perhaps even too thin, and a place that has invested its resources in what ultimately matters: aid for students, support for faculty and staff, and the facilities to enable your best work. Amherst believes in fairness, prudence, and good governance, and it believes above all in the intimate arts of teaching. I look forward to 2021. If I'm lucky enough to be here on the 200th anniversary, I will not make predictions about the future of the nation. What I'll say right now about it is this: I imagine an Amherst that is even more diverse in people, in points of view, than it is now. An even headier mix of different cultural, intellectual, religious, and political traditions. I imagine a faculty that has been rebuilt in the intervening 10 years, and that still includes the best scholar teachers, the most capacious thinkers, and the most entertaining characters in higher education. I imagine an Amherst that makes greater use of our 5-college consortium to attract those faculty and support your scholarly collaborations. I imagine we'll be making more use of technology in our teaching, but not having removed the person-to-person contact from the center of our enterprise. I imagine an Amherst that will have beaten Williams in football in each of the intervening 10 years. I imagine in 2021 that our women's and men's soccer teams and our women's basketball team will have brought home more national championships, and that men's tennis will have as well. I imagine walking across the stunningly beautiful freshman quad on a beautiful fall morning, on my way to have coffee with students in a new center for science and discovery and campus gathering. And there I'm being caught up on innovations in interdisciplinary basic science and scientific education. And I'm sitting in an architecturally ambitious modern building that celebrates our contemplative landscape and highlights our traditional dwellings rather than detracting from them. I imagine listening to faculty, staff, and students talk about recent breakthroughs in medical research and with great urgency about what can be done to preserve our environment in the face of global climate change. I imagine visiting upper-class students in your new social dorms. I can't wait to see how they accommodate what our students need for both work and play. I imagine in those residence halls seeing the students interacting in teams on their work with the highest technology that the students would like to have. I imagine a new facility that accommodates Amherst's reinvention of work in the humanities. I imagine facilities with new classrooms. I imagine students interacting in real time with their counterparts in other parts of the world. I imagine students having greater opportunities to be entrepreneurial in ways that are socially beneficial and economically smart. I imagine an Amherst that has found ways to extend its reach and export more of what we do and is more explicit about what we can contribute to a public sphere in need of Amherst's values. What I imagine is of little relevance. I will work to facilitate your vision and your aspirations for Amherst College. If they match some of mine, I'll be pleased. I fear a world without its Amhersts. I fear a world in which the political and economic crowd out the poetic, in which politics and business are no longer inflected by the poetic, in which the race to the top and a winner-take-all mentality eliminate the space for reflection, where kindness and collaboration across party lines are considered weak, where utility is defined by the immediacy of results, and where the lure of spectacle relegates the simple pleasures of human relationships and day-to-day contact obsolete. I say to you today as I close, let's make Amherst, to an even greater extent, the incubator of the world that we know we need to embrace, a world that embraces and celebrates the differences among us, among races, religions, and cultures in Micklejohn's terms, among creeds and points of view. A world that is enlivened by these differences, that honors them, and also allows them to become something else entirely by virtue of their inmixing. In 2021 and into its third century, Amherst will be heavily sought after, a compelling destination, because it is at one and the same time open, intellectually vibrant, engaged, intimate, and tranquil, a condensation of apparently incompatible qualities. It is full of quick and avid and resourceful people who are devoted to the well-being of the world and to the planet that hosts us. Thank you for your confidence in my leadership.
The inauguration ceremony of Carolyn Biddy Martin as the 19th President of Amherst College is hereby adjourned. God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Sister colleges can't hang together.